Well, welcome to today's rant. And the subject today, the theme is the great and terrible day of the Lord. That's a scripture in both Joel and other places referenced. You say the great and terrible day of the Lord. Well, which is it? It's both. It is both. I've got friends, they they have prophetic gifts. They've been shown things in the future. Some of them see how bad it's going to be. Some of them tend to see only good. Which is it? Are these in conflict? No, they're both true. I believe they're both right. But, I know some of them I've talked to, and they feel like the other people who don't see what they're seeing are in error. No, they're not. It is the great and the terrible day of the Lord. It is going to be both. For some, it's going to be great. For some, it's going to be terrible. I think we choose that. But, I think one reason why you see so much conflict in prophetic voices, or seeming conflict, is we all see in part, we know in part, we prophesy in part. The most any of us has is part. But we think if everybody's not seeing just what we're seeing, they're wrong. No, they're not. They're seeing a different part. And what we've got to learn to do is put the parts together so we have the whole picture. That's why it says when the Lord restores Zion, it says his watchmen will see eye to eye, or they will see in unity. Now that's interesting. Everybody says, well, the Lord's restored Israel. He's restored Zion. I think it's far from restored. I think in the natural, they've gotten back to their land, but restoring Zion to their purpose and relationship to God, I think there's a long ways to go. It can happen quick, but there's a long ways to go yet. Anyway, there's a saying that you can see things as they appear, or you can see things as they really are. And I think, one of the great dangers today, one of the deceptions today is the incredible pride of thinking our little part is the whole. And where we have these huge, expansive judgments of things based on partial information, and that's all anyone has. It's partial information. The Lord said in Amos that he would not do anything unless he first revealed his secret counsel to his servants, the prophets. That's plural. It's never singular. Prophets, plural. He never shows everything to anyone. He shows parts to them, and we've got to learn to come together and put our parts together. Anyway, it does say in 1 Thessalonians 5, we are sons of light, and so we're not supposed to be groping about in the darkness. And that was in relation to the coming of the Lord. It says we're not supposed to be caught. He is coming like a thief in the night, but that's not to his people. We should be very expectant of him. That doesn't mean we know the day or the hour, the minute, maybe even the year, but we are expectantly waiting. We know it's close, and we're looking for him. So, that's, I think if we're going to start seeing things as they are, instead of just the way they appear, we've got to be humble enough to know that we're only seeing in part, and to give with others who may see what we think is the exact opposite, but let's hear their side. What are what are they basing what they're seeing on? And then start to see how these fit together. I think in the coming times, I've been shown times of great prosperity and peace coming. And I've been shown times of incredible darkness, incredible trial and tribulation. That's me. I've been shown both sides. That's not that I've been shown every side to everything, but I've been shown both of those aspects of what's coming. And I've wondered before, where do they fit in? Well, some of it's timing. I think right now the U.S. and much of the world is headed for a time of relative peace and stability and prosperity. I think it's related to Revelation 7, where the Lord holds back the four winds of the earth until his angels can seal his bondservants. I think some of it's that. We also relate that to the harvest. But after that, I think a lot of things are going to break loose. We know that at the very end, it's going to be the worst tribulation that the world has ever known. But that's not a bad thing either. I think there's going to be whole nations experiencing unbelievable tribulation where a nation next door may be so aligned with God that they're not experiencing tribulation at that time. They're experiencing the opposite. And but it's our tendency to take our partial revelation and try to make it apply to the whole that gets us messed up. We see in Revelation that I think there's an incredible judgment coming upon the nations. That's obvious. That's clear. And then we see in the book of Revelations there are nations, that kingdoms that become the kingdom of our Lord. They're already, we see these are what we call the sheep nations. Let me throw the ball for my dogs, lest I have no peace, because they will bother me until I do. But anyway, these are things I hope they help your perspective. Also, I just wanted to mention, I've talked a little bit on here about our brand new Masters in Leadership course. It's an accredited course, MorningStar University, that's coming, and I implied yesterday that I think we're, already filled up, as many as students as we can take, but I found out a couple of the students could not get their visas or had some problem there, and so we have a couple of openings. If any of you wanted to be a part of that, I think it's going to be a leadership course for a master's degree that is like no other. I mean, you look at who we've got teaching it. General Jerry Boykin, Nicholas Papanicolaou, one of the most interesting, both of those are two of the most interesting people in our times. If you know their history and what they've done, if there could be anyone as interesting as those two, would be Mark Nuttall, and he's going to be teaching a course. Mark has done some of the most incredible things, I think, in our times. I think he is the single person, the most responsible for the unraveling of the Iron Curtain. When you hear the story, you can see it. What he was used to do. He was part of the Reagan administration and Bush. And things like that. And they're going to be, it's 1 weekend a month. The students and the teachers come together, and we have our meals together. We have, a lot of personal time. I mean, it's going to be every weekend. I think it's Friday through Saturday, and Friday evening through Saturday, and just a real intense time together. But where it's a personal interchange too. It's a personal discipleship thing. It's more than just reading books and learning facts and things like that. And these are from some of the, I think, greatest leaders in our time in many different fields. So we've got other incredible instructors as well. So I think we've got 2 places left. So if you're interested in that, you've got to have a bachelor's degree, but you can go to morningstarministries.org. There are 4 doors there on the website. We have a brand new website. And one door says schools. Punch that. You'll go to MSU, Morningstar University. Punch that, and you'll see the Masters in Leadership course. It's got a link if you want to apply. It's got basic information there, who to contact if you want to talk to somebody about it. But anyway, just want to throw that out. Now, back to a little bit of the current events of the day. And, I'm still, grieved. One grief I have I think you could call it a burden for our country, is the way justice has been perverted here. I think the Department of Justice has been corrupted, perverted. I think the shocking thing with all that's going on in this, investigation, Mueller investigation of Trump on collusion, guess what? There's no law against that. You can collude with anybody in an election. Now, where the problem would be is if you colluded to do something illegal, such as manipulating voter machines or voter fraud or something like that. But that's the most bizarre thing. And they still, 2 years, still haven't found anything. They're prosecuting Manafort over other stuff they found, his own tax fraud possibly, or other kinds of things, but it's nothing to do with the Russian collusion or any other kind of illegal voter or election collusion. And then we have the obvious collusion, and I think illegal, maybe even treasonous collusion that everybody knows has been admitted. There's absolute evidence of it, of what Hillary Clinton was doing with the Russians. How about the Russian dossier that her election campaign paid for turned out to be all false, all fake, made up stuff, but still her election campaign paid for that, being in collusion not only with the Russians, far worse, with our FBI, with our Department of Justice, to throw the election. Well, why isn't Mueller going after that stuff? It's obvious. Everybody knows it was illegal, knows what was done. There's clear evidence of it. And then you got stuff like the Uranium One deal with the Russians. You got all this other stuff. Nobody's even investigating. Our Department of Justice should be all over that. Instead, our Department of Justice empowered Special Prosecutor Mueller to go after the president, the duly elected president, giving him carte blanche, no budget, spend anything you want, all you want. It's outrageous. That kind of thing's got to be fixed. We need, I think, above anything else right now, the main thing we need in our country right now is a strong, decisive leader, Attorney General, who is going to get the Department of Justice fixed and deal with all of the corruption that has come into the Department of Justice, that has obviously come into the top levels of the FBI. It's all clear to everybody. That's got to be fixed, and it needs to be prosecuted. We got plenty of people in prisons all over the place for far lesser crimes. Why aren't they in jail? There's some in the former Obama administration that should be obviously, very obviously prosecuted. Well, I know our Department of Justice, and I think our Attorney General doesn't want to touch that because it looked like political payback. It doesn't matter what it looks like. The Department of Justice has, the Lady Justice, the statue of Lady Justice that holds the scales, meaning there's supposed to be equal justice for everyone, has a blindfold on. To have true justice, you can't weigh things on their political consequences. You've got to weigh them on what is right or wrong, what is broken the law or not broken the law. So, where's justice in our country? As I've been saying, and I'm going to give a whole lot of evidence for this, too, I think the justice system in our country, including the courts and everything else, is more distorted, more out of whack, more dysfunctional, and more unjust than our federal government is. Now, we've got proof with our own court case. We have property here, a building that was originally valued in its present condition to be worth between $11 and $15 million, which the county has done everything they could. Our local county here, York County, South Carolina, our county leaders have done everything they could to stop us from finishing that building. That's against the law. It's against federal law. It's against state law, state South Carolina law. There are laws on the books that say no government entity can inhibit or prohibit any religious organization from developing its own property. Those are laws on the books. They just flew in the face of those things. We found out, there are laws in South Carolina about development agreements that the county used to do this to us with. And we found they broke the laws, South Carolina laws of development agreement, with the development agreement they gave to us. Very basically, things like that. A lot of other things we found. But then what happened in the courts with judges just absolutely blows your mind. I don't know of a lawyer that hadn't looked at it and said, this is the craziest thing they've ever seen, what some of the judges did to us. We're going to bring all of this out. Now we have to file some new things. Some of it is in an appeals court in South Carolina now, and they're still looking at things. They may find these things on their own, which would be really encouraging that somebody cares about justice and obeying the law and these things. But we ran it up, and first time they just kind of rubber stamped the decision of the lower court, which is what they typically do. And the decision of the lower court was basically to deny us. When I demanded a jury trial, which is our right, they basically said, you can have a jury trial, but you can't bring any of your evidence. They disallowed all of our evidence. Clear, good, solid evidence that should be presented as material in the case. And they disallowed it. That's unjust. That's bizarre. And I've had top people looking at it. People that have argued before Supreme Court and everything. This is crazy. Well, wait until you see what we have to bring out, what was done to us right here on a local level. It's done to other churches and ministries. One of the reasons I think we're called to fight this is we're also fighting for all the other little churches and ministries that don't have the resources to stand up to this kind of injustice. Well, we do. We are. And we think we have to do that as citizens. This can't be allowed in our country. We deal with all kinds of third world nations with our missions and everything. We've never seen anything like this in a third world country. And in almost every other way, this is one of the great places in the world to live. One of the great counties, one of the great states. We love it here. And one thing's probably restrained us a lot is we don't want to bring all this trouble on our own county and bad publicity, but we did everything we could to make peace with the county, and they rebuffed us in the most insulting ways you could imagine. And we still reached out and said, let's work this out, and they finally, it just got so bad, we said, okay, well, we've got to go nuclear. We're going to file on the violation of our constitutional rights and all, which you will see where our basic constitutional rights were denied us by our local county. And I'm bringing this out because the story needs to be told. And one thing, I'm the steward of a ministry. I couldn't let a property valued at over $10 million. They say now we just had a new engineering study done on that tower to see that it's still viable, and they said not only is it still good, it's probably appreciated a great amount. It's worth a whole lot more now. How could I be a good steward and let that just be torn down with all this obvious religious persecution from our county? And it is that. It's because we're Christians. We've got emails revealing that. We can show where it was an actual religious bias. And So we have to stand up to that. But we all have to stand up. That's our duty as citizens. Because if we let injustice go, then it's going to continue to impact many other people too. We have to stand up to injustice. And somebody on the federal level has to stand up to all the injustice that has been done to the whole country by what our Department of Justice has done, the corruption in our Department of Justice, and the corruption in the top levels of the FBI. I say top levels because almost every FBI agent, field level agent I've ever met, these are incredible people. They're doing their job now. They're doing it under the worst kind of, it's just made their job so much tougher and harder, and I'm sure it's hard to recruit good people for the FBI right now. It looks so bad, but I tell you, it's not that way throughout the ranks of the FBI. Like it's not everybody in Congress is corrupt. Not everybody in the Department of Justice is corrupt. But we're the champions that are going to stand for the justice, that are going to stand up against the injustice. And I think that's a part of our duty as being salt and light. So, it is the great and terrible day of the Lord. Now, I know some new translations say the great and awesome day of the Lord and all that. That's not the way it reads in the original. I mean, you really, a lot of the new translations, don't read them. They are so politicized. And I say with spiritual political correctness, I don't even read them. You have to go back to those that are at least made a supreme attempt to be true to the original language, what the scriptures really meant. And it said the great and terrible day of the Lord. It will be both and at the same time. So be sure for you and your house, your church, your family, your city, your nation, it's going to be the great day of the Lord. Thank you for watching today's rant.